We're almost there. I promise you, we are almost there. As fans of both Frank Ocean and Travis Scott, we've waited far too long. But that's the price you have to pay for great art. It takes time, and I'm sure no one will complain when those holy days do come when Frank and Travis drop their projects, and when they do, they will dominate the year. In 2016, Frank dropped Blonde. In the opening week, it sold 276,000 units, outperforming The Life of Pablo, Anti, and Birds in the Trap, which all released in 2016 as well. Blonde dropped exactly 1,502 days after the release of Channel Orange. 1,502 days after Blonde's release was September 30th, 2020, and unfortunately, we still don't have the follow-up. But there are a few clues we can gather which tell us that the project is imminent. Before we get into the very juicy clues, there are a couple that every Frank hardcore stan knows, but let's still cover them. First clue is his rumored headlining of Coachella 2023, which was confirmed by the co-creator of Coachella, Paul Tollett, in a New York Times interview. Originally, Frank was supposed to headline Coachella in 2020 along with Travis Scott. However, Coachella first postponed the April festival in March, saying they would hold it in October once the pandemic was over. But then in June, they officially canceled the festival indefinitely. There's no doubt in my mind that Frank had a full project locked and loaded, ready to drop right before his Coachella set. Why do I think this? First of all, I don't know any artist that's headlined Coachella with music that's more than 4 years old. I'm fairly confident that there's some contractual obligation between Coachella and the headliners that they have to have some material that's been released within the last year. I mean, we saw this exact same scenario with the Milano Festival that Kendrick headlined in summer 2022. The announcement first came in February, and there were no hints that there was any Kendrick music dropping. But then a month before the festival, in May, he dropped Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. The second reason why I think Frank had a locked and loaded ready project to go was that all the hints were on the cover art of his new singles like DHL and In My Room. It appeared that both covers were part of some larger rollout of songs to be released with the album. However, I see two reasons why the project never saw light of day and was consequently scrapped entirely. One, obviously, is the pandemic. Every major artist paused their releases during the pandemic because most of the money they make is from touring. And when you can't do that, you're basically sacrificing years of creativity and hard work for no monetary payout. This happened to The Weeknd when he released After Hours in March 2020, right before the pandemic hit. He was supposed to tour shortly after, but it kept getting postponed until finally in 2022, he renamed the After Hours tour to After Hours Till Dawn Tour. He even had to release a whole new project, Dawn FM, in order to justify still going through with touring for After Hours. The second reason why I think this wasn't released was because of the sudden passing of his brother Ryan in August 2020. I can't imagine the emotional toll this had on Frank, and I think the last thing on his mind is releasing new music after such a tragic passing like that. Okay, so his Coachella headlining is the first clue that came out, the second being the 2021 headline that Frank was shopping his new album. A media outlet, Daily Double Hit, said that attorney Lori Soriano is representing Ocean and has been taking meetings and playing the music for execs. Essentially, Frank is shopping for a distributor after going independent post-release of Endless. A distributor helps with marketing as well as pulling a bunch of other various strings within the music industry through connections that they have. Having a good distributor can take a great album to being an album of the year contender. Now, the juicy clues. The first one that we have is Frank wiping his whole Instagram. And then the second clue is that very soon after this, he began holding his weekly Homer Radio releases every Thursday. Homer Radio is very similar conceptually to his Praise Blonded Radio, where he spends around an hour DJing, introducing listeners to his favorite tunes. With Blonded Radio, however, we would also get Frank premiering his latest new song, which would then be released shortly after. With the timing of Coachella coming up, Frank finding a distributor, and wiping his Instagram seemingly indicating some album rollout, I would predict we will soon be getting new Frank music debuted on his Homer Radio station. Only time will tell. The other artist who was on the poster with Frank Ocean for Coachella 2020 was Travis Scott. Travis is the other artist who I think will be dominating 2023. In 2018, he dropped Astroworld, which had the second biggest debut in album sales, only second to Drake's Scorpion that year. But now, more than 4 years later, fans are still waiting for his follow-up. Like Frank Ocean having to put his album on a pause because of COVID and then eventually scrapping it entirely after the emotional toll he went through, Travis had to similarly delay his project. This delay, though, was because of the horrific Astroworld Festival tragedy that happened in November 2021, where 10 young Travis fans lost their lives from a crowd crush. According to an interview that Travis did with ID Magazine in 2021, months prior to the Astroworld tragedy, he did confirm that his next project would release in 2022. On the day of the Astroworld tragedy, just hours prior, Travis did release 2 singles, Escape Plan and Mafia, the latter of which had a surprise feature from J. Cole. My belief is that these releases were just the beginning of the Utopia album rollout, and some rumors even speculate that Travis planned to release a mixtape Dystopia before Utopia, similar to how he did Days Before Rodeo a year before Rodeo. But given what happened just after hours of the single's release, I think any plans to release a prelude project like Dystopia was scrapped entirely. Instead of dropping any prelude project, instead Travis would recluse and stay out of the limelight for nearly a year. That is until he headlined his first show in London, July 2022. At this show, he performed unreleased material such as Lost Forever featuring James Blake and Westside Gunn, as well as God's Country, which was supposed to be on Kanye's Donda but never actually got released. In addition to these 2 songs, the other song rumored to be on Travis's forthcoming album is Blunt Talk with Bryson Tiller. All of these songs have a psychedelic rap rock crossover sound, which is the sound Travis alluded to going for when he was quoted saying, "I'm in this new album mode where it's like psychedelic rock." And telling the interviewer that's been one of the most fun things about working on this album, I'm evolving, collaborating with new people, delivering a whole new sound, a whole new range. In researching this video, I listened to all these tracks, and the one that really stood out was Lost Forever with James Blake and Westside Gunn. The instrumental is so emotional. It's heavy and sad with James Blake's pitched vocals, but still maintains this psychedelic and futuristic sound. And then Travis's bars feel so purposeful and vintage, even opting to not use any auto-tune. I really hope, and I do think that this is the sound that Travis will go for on Utopia. All these rumored tracks do have one thing in common though. Dark. Much darker than the sounds on Astroworld, which honestly, I'm here for. I mean, my favorite tracks tend to be Travis's darker songs like Maria, I'm Drunk, and Drugs, You Should Try It. Rumored tracks aside, when are we getting this album? Well, that's hard to say, but there are hints that it's coming soon. First hint is Travis Scott's Road to Utopia performances he held in Las Vegas while being a resident artist. There were 7 shows wrapped up in late October and are seemingly shows to get fans excited for the new project. Then there was a tweet where Travis said he'd been in the studio 2 days straight, and funny enough, both JID and Joey Badass said they were waiting on a beat or beats from Travis. So, potential features? And another tweet in August where Travis said, "I'll be back when it's album time," making it really seem like the project is that close to being done. And the final clue are all the festivals that he's headlining. There are a lot of them. First is Rolling Loud Los Angeles in March, then Ceremonio held in Mexico City just the next month, then iDays Festival in Milan early June, and Rolling Loud Rotterdam late June, and finally Rolling Loud Portugal in July. If I were a betting man, which I actually am, it's something that I'm working on, I'd say Utopia will drop in March just before his Rolling Loud performance. You heard it here first, Utopia dropping March 2023, or at least summer 2023.